Breaking news. You are not ready for this one. Imagine sitting in court, cameras flashing, your name trending worldwide, not because you cured cancer, but because the judge just said, you will die. That's right, folks. Today, we're diving into the unholy world of serial killers reacting to their own death sentences, and trust me, these reactions are wilder than your aunt's Facebook conspiracy theories. Now, picture this. A man who hunted people for sport, suddenly crying because the state decided to hunt him back legally, or the self-proclaimed Satan worshipper who looks more confused than guilty when his reign of terror finally meets reality. What goes through their heads in that final courtroom moment? Fear, regret, or just wait, do I still get my last meal? We've got courtroom footage, fake leaks, and totally real psychological breakdowns from experts who may or may not have been interns at True Crime Talk. From crocodile tears to chilling smirks, from I didn't do it to yeah, I did it and I'd do it again. This is the ultimate mashup of madness, justice, and pure human meltdown. So buckle up, lock your doors, and maybe check under your bed, because what we found in this investigation might just haunt your next Netflix binge. The courtroom was packed so tightly that the air itself felt heavy with curiosity and fear, the kind that only comes when evil is standing right there in front of you pretending to be human. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters whispered to each other, trying to catch every expression, and the audience waited for the moment when justice would finally speak. In the middle of it all, sat Marcus Hargrove, known to his twisted followers as the Saint. A man who believed that killing was not murder but salvation. His crimes had turned whole towns into ghost stories. Yet even with the evidence stacked high enough to crush a mountain, he sat calmly as though he were in church. When the judge read the verdict, guilty on 9 counts of first-degree murder, Marcus smiled. And that single gesture made the room tremble because it was not fear on his face. It was pride. As the death sentence was announced, he bowed his head slowly like a priest, saying amen. And someone in the back swore they heard him whisper, "You cannot kill what is eternal." That one line became internet gold within hours, spreading across social media faster than truth ever could. Conspiracy pages lit up with claims that Marcus had been part of a hidden cult operating behind religious institutions, that his so-called victims had been chosen for a reason, that his crimes were sacrifices, not murders. Then things took a darker turn when documents surfaced linking Judge Hamilton, the very man who had sentenced Marcus to a religious rehabilitation program, accused of covering up abuse decades earlier. The internet erupted with the hashtag Holy Corruption, and suddenly everyone was hunting for proof that the system itself had been playing both sides. The news shows called it speculation, but anonymous sources claimed leaked emails from the judge's office had phrases like "the saint has completed his mission." Even though nothing was verified, the doubts spread like oil on water. Inside prison, Marcus refused interviews, yet somehow his words kept finding their way online. One supposed journalist claimed he received a handwritten note from the killer saying that judgment will come for those who mock the divine. Others said Marcus had followers still working on the outside, sending coded messages through social media posts. When blurry footage appeared online showing his cell lights flickering right after a priest's visit, people called it supernatural proof. Officials blamed an electrical fault, but the internet had already made up its mind. Videos analyzed every frame. Voices whispered about spiritual energy, and some even claimed to see shapes moving in the shadows. After the announcement of Marcus Hargrove's execution date, the world seemed to hold its breath, and the frenzy that followed was unlike anything seen before because people were no longer watching a criminal, they were witnessing what many believed was the unraveling of a secret society hidden in plain sight. News anchors pretended to stay neutral while flashing ominous headlines. Social media flooded with self-proclaimed investigators decoding every phrase Marcus had ever written in his journal, and online forums began connecting him to other unsolved murders across different states. It was chaos in digital form, and every detail, no matter how absurd, became part of a growing narrative that something enormous was being hidden from the public. Then came the so-called leak, a grainy audio clip uploaded to an obscure website that claimed to feature a private conversation between a warden and a federal agent. In the recording, a voice allegedly belonging to the warden said that Marcus's body could not be moved for 12 hours after his death due to a chemical reaction that occurred during the execution. It sounded ridiculous, yet the clip went viral, shared by millions who were convinced that Marcus was more than human. Some claimed he had predicted his own death in his final journal entry. Others insisted the government was experimenting on prisoners. The truth no longer mattered because belief had taken over. Soon after, journalists began reporting strange activity around the prison. A guard supposedly collapsed after seeing Marcus's reflection in a mirror even though he was nowhere near one. Another guard told tabloids that on the night before the execution, the temperature inside Hargrove's cell dropped so low that his breath was visible despite the heating system working fine. Local residents claimed the prison lights flickered for hours and animals near the area refused to come close. Officials called it technical malfunction, but the stories wouldn't stop. Anonymous insiders fed the fire by sending cryptic emails to reporters, saying things like he spoke to the shadows and the walls listened. True crime YouTubers jumped on every rumor, creating thumbnails with red circles and exaggerated faces, raking in millions of views as they claimed to expose the real reason behind Hargrove's death. One particularly viral video argued that Marcus had been a government experiment gone wrong, trained under a covert project during his youth and later discarded when he became uncontrollable. The video used old photos, blurred documents, and computer-generated voiceovers to create what looked like undeniable proof. Within days, the theory was trending, and people began demanding the government release all files related to Project Saint, a program that did not even exist. Outside the fever dream of online detectives, the prison administration tried to shut things down by releasing a press statement confirming that Marcus's body had been cremated immediately after his execution to prevent vandalism at his grave. But that only added fuel to the fire. Commenters said cremation was chosen to destroy evidence that maybe he wasn't dead at all, that he had been transferred under a new identity. Satellite images of the prison were analyzed, heat maps were dissected, and one blurry shape near the fence was labeled proof that Marcus had escaped. People wanted to believe it because the idea that pure evil could survive death was more entertaining than the truth. Meanwhile, someone claiming to be a former follower of Marcus appeared in an online interview saying the cult had never died and that members were preparing for what they called the Second Dawn, a phrase Marcus had supposedly written before his trial. Whether real or staged, the clip went viral. The man wore a mask, spoke in a trembling voice, and said that Marcus's execution had unlocked a prophecy. Comment sections filled with panic and fascination. Influencers reacted to it live, and by the end of that week, protests had formed outside the prison demanding the government disclose what really happened during the execution. Resignation of the warden ignited a wave of hysteria that spread beyond the internet and into the streets as protesters holding candles and homemade signs surrounded the courthouse, chanting phrases like "the truth dies last" and "bring back the saint," while television anchors pretended to maintain composure as if the entire nation had not lost its grip on reality. Within 48 hours, several high-profile figures had stepped into the chaos, including a senator who called for an emergency review of the state's correctional system and an independent journalist who claimed to possess documents proving the government had conducted psychological experiments on death row inmates going back 20 years. The document was never shown, but that did not stop it from dominating every social platform where users debated, theorized, and exaggerated each other's fear into collective madness. The governor tried to calm the situation with a public statement saying the investigation was under control, but his speech only added gasoline to the fire because he accidentally referred to Marcus Hargrove as Mr. Hargrove. May his soul rest in peace, which conspiracy groups instantly dissected as evidence that the governor was part of the cult. Within days, the governor's house was surrounded by camera crews and drones, and a petition demanding his resignation hit 1 million signatures in a single night. Meanwhile, underground forums claimed to have received encrypted files from an anonymous insider labeled Saint Protocol, and inside them were blurry images of what looked like lab rooms, strange symbols, and medical equipment covered with handwritten notes saying "subject awake" and "reaction unstable." Experts quickly dismissed the files as AI-generated hoaxes, but by then the damage was done because people preferred the excitement of mystery to the boredom of truth. Then came the incident that pushed everything over the edge. 3 nights after the warden's resignation, a truck carrying archived prison records caught fire on a remote highway and burst into flames, leaving only ashes. The official report called it an accident caused by faulty wiring, but eyewitnesses insisted they saw a black SUV following the truck moments before it exploded. Some even said they heard chanting before the fire started. Video clips appeared online within hours showing glowing symbols near the crash site. Though later analysis showed the footage had been edited, yet the idea of supernatural interference stuck. Across talk shows and live stream debates, everyone asked the same question: was Marcus really gone, or had his influence survived? A few days later, power outages hit several towns near the prison and rumors began that Marcus's ashes had been scattered illegally near a river, causing strange phenomena like water turning red and flocks of birds disappearing at sunset. Scientists called it mass hysteria, but religious groups declared it a sign of divine reckoning. Fear turned into obsession as thousands gathered online each night for live countdowns to the second dawn, the event Marcus's masked follower had predicted. When the date finally arrived, tens of thousands tuned in to streams around the world, waiting for anything to happen. Midnight passed and nothing did except a sudden surge of power cuts across 3 states, which was enough for believers to claim the prophecy had been fulfilled. The internet exploded with theories that Marcus's energy had returned and merged with the system, that the cult was spreading digitally, that his consciousness had escaped into the network. A viral post from an anonymous user stated that Marcus's voice had been heard through a prison intercom days after his death saying, "I am still here." The authorities denied everything, but by now no one cared what they said. Television panels argued endlessly about government control, corruption, faith, and science, while merchandise featuring Marcus's face appeared online labeled the Eternal Saint and sold out instantly. Pop artists referenced him in lyrics, horror movie trailers used his story, and streaming platforms rushed to release documentaries. Cashing in on the chaos. Behind all this noise, a grand jury was quietly formed to investigate the original case again, not because of justice, but because of pressure. Leaked minutes from one session revealed that the committee could not locate several original pieces of evidence from the Hargrove trial, including his journals and digital records of his prison interviews. That revelation triggered another round of panic, and suddenly people were convinced Marcus's followers had infiltrated the justice system itself. When reporters confronted officials, they gave cold, rehearsed answers about data migration errors and evidence storage issues, but their calm only made them seem guiltier. Rumors spread that 2 guards involved in Marcus's execution had gone missing, though local police claimed they were simply on leave. News crews camped outside the prison fences, filming static shots of dark windows and broken lights, narrating stories of whispers coming from the walls. The line between truth and fiction disappeared completely, as millions continued to debate online whether Marcus Hargrove had been a man, a myth, or something in between. The story no longer belonged to the courts or the government or even the media. It had evolved into a living legend fed by fear, curiosity, and the irresistible thrill of the unknown. So what do you think really happened that night? Was Marcus Hargrove just a delusional killer who fooled the world, or was there something far deeper lurking behind those courtroom walls that none of us were meant to see? Because every time a door closes on a story like this, another one opens somewhere darker, and every unanswered question keeps echoing like a warning. The files vanished, the footage burned, the witnesses disappeared, and yet his name still trends like a ghost that refuses to die. Maybe this is not just a case, but a mirror showing us how easily we trade truth for entertainment. Maybe we created our own saint without even realizing it. But I want to know what you think. Was it corruption? Was it cult power? Or was it something supernatural? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because your theory might just be the next piece of this puzzle. And if you want more stories the world isn't ready to hear, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next truth we uncover might make this one look like a bedtime story. Stay curious, stay awake, and remember, nothing is ever just coincidence.